In the vast emptiness of space, a strange object drifted silently toward Earth. It wasn't like anything humanity had seen before. A sleek, metallic ship with smooth curves and glowing patterns that pulsed faintly, as if alive. The United Nations Space Coalition monitored the object for weeks as it approached, unsure whether it was a threat or an opportunity. When it finally entered Earth's orbit, the decision was made. They would send a team to investigate. Commander Ryan Carter stood at the helm of the SS Horizon *, a state-of-the-art spacecraft designed for deep space exploration. Beside him sat Dr. Laura Bennett, her eyes glued to the monitor displaying images of the alien vessel. She was a scientist through and through, always eager to uncover the mysteries of the universe. Behind them, engineer Jake Miller worked tirelessly to ensure the ship's systems were running smoothly. He wasn't one for small talk, but had a reputation for fixing anything that broke. As the Horizon * drew closer to the alien craft, the tension in the air was palpable. None of them knew what to expect. The ship showed no signs of life, no movement, no communication, nothing. Its surface was scarred with damage, evidence of battles fought long ago. Ryan steadied himself as he gave the order to dock. "Let's move carefully," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We don't know what we're dealing with." The team boarded the alien ship cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The interior was eerily quiet, filled with narrow corridors and strange symbols etched into the walls. Laura couldn't help but marvel at the craftsmanship. It was both beautiful and unsettling. As they moved deeper into the ship, they discovered rows of pods lining the halls. Most were empty, their glass surfaces cracked or shattered. But one pod caught their attention. It glowed softly, pulsating in rhythm with their movements. Laura stepped closer, her heart racing. "It's still active," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. The others gathered around as the pod began to open, revealing a small, fragile-looking creature inside. It had translucent skin that shimmered faintly, large, unblinking eyes, and delicate limbs. For a moment, no one spoke. They simply stared, awestruck by what lay before them. Jake broke the silence. "Is it alive?" he asked, his tone skeptical but curious. Laura nodded slowly. "Yes, and I think it's been waiting." She reached out cautiously, her gloved hand hovering just above the creature. It didn't flinch or react aggressively. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, studying them with an almost childlike curiosity. Ryan frowned, his mind racing. Protocol dictated that they leave the creature where it was and report back to Earth. But something about it tugged at him. It wasn't dangerous. It was vulnerable. "We can't just leave it here," Laura said, echoing his thoughts. "It might not survive on its own." After a brief debate, Ryan made the call. "We'll take it with us, but we proceed carefully. This changes everything." Back on the Horizon *, the creature remained calm, watching them intently as they prepared for the journey home. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was more than just scientific. It was personal. Whatever this being was, it had chosen them. And now, whether they liked it or not, it was part of their mission, and perhaps their future. As the ship turned toward Earth, none of them could have guessed how much their lives were about to change. The alien creature, now safely aboard the SS Horizon *, became the center of attention as the team made its way back to Earth. Dr. Laura Bennett spent most of her time observing it, trying to understand its behavior and needs. She named it Echo, after noticing how it mimicked sounds and movements around it. At first, Echo seemed hesitant, keeping its distance and watching silently. But over time, it began to grow more comfortable, inching closer to the humans who cared for it. Back on Earth, Echo was taken to a high-security research facility hidden deep in the Colorado mountains. The facility buzzed with activity as scientists from all over the world arrived to study the being. Laura worked tirelessly alongside them, documenting every detail about Echo's physiology and behavior. What fascinated her most was its intelligence. It didn't just copy actions randomly. It learned quickly, adapting to its surroundings in ways that were almost human-like. Jake Miller, the engineer, wasn't much for science, but found himself drawn to Echo too. One day, while repairing a broken machine in the lab, he noticed Echo watching him intently. When Jake picked up a wrench, Echo reached out and mimicked the motion with its tiny hand. Amused, Jake handed it a spare tool, and to his surprise, Echo used it to help tighten a bolt. From then on, Jake started teaching Echo simple tasks, like stacking blocks or turning dials. It was clear that Echo enjoyed learning, often clapping its hands excitedly when it got something right. Commander Ryan Carter, however, remained cautious. He respected Laura's dedication and admired Jake's patience, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with fire. "We don't know what this thing is capable of," he warned during one meeting. "It's smart, too smart. What happens if it decides we're not worth trusting anymore?" His concerns grew louder when Echo did something unexpected. During a routine observation session, Laura asked it a question. "Do you understand us?" To everyone's shock, Echo tilted its head, paused for a moment, and then spoke its first word, "Family." The room fell silent. Laura felt a lump rise in her throat as tears welled up in her eyes. She had suspected that Echo understood more than it let on, but hearing it speak was overwhelming. For the first time, they realized that Echo wasn't just mimicking. They had formed a connection. It viewed them not as captors, but as something deeper. Word of Echo's progress spread quickly, drawing both admiration and criticism. Some people celebrated the breakthrough, calling it a historic moment for humanity. Others were terrified, warning that bringing an alien into their midst could lead to disaster. Protesters gathered outside the facility, holding signs that read, "Send it back," and "Protect our planet." The pressure weighed heavily on the team, especially Ryan, who struggled to balance public opinion with their mission. Despite the controversy, life inside the facility continued. Echo thrived under the care of the researchers, forming bonds with each of them in unique ways. It would sit quietly beside Laura during experiments, watch Jake work on machines, and even follow Ryan around, as if seeking approval. Its presence brought a strange sense of warmth to the cold, sterile environment. One evening, as the sun set over the mountains, Laura sat alone with Echo in the observation room. She looked at it thoughtfully, wondering about its past. Where had it come from? Why had it been left behind? And what did it truly want from them? As if sensing her thoughts, Echo placed a small hand on hers, its touch gentle yet deliberate. In that moment, Laura knew they weren't just studying Echo, they were learning from it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain: Echo had changed them forever. As days turned into weeks, Echo's presence in the facility became more than just a scientific marvel. It started to feel like a part of their daily lives. Dr. Laura Bennett spent hours teaching it new words and phrases, marveling at how quickly it learned. Echo wasn't just repeating what it heard, it was understanding. When Laura said thank you, Echo responded with a soft nod. When Jake showed frustration while fixing a broken machine, Echo patted his arm as if to comfort him. These small moments made the team realize that Echo wasn't just intelligent, it was empathetic. Commander Ryan Carter still had doubts, though. He watched Echo closely, trying to understand its motives. Was it truly forming bonds with them, or was it simply adapting to survive? One night, after a long day of meetings and debates, Ryan found himself alone in the observation room with Echo. The creature sat quietly, gazing out the window at the stars. For a moment, Ryan wondered if it missed its home, or if it even had one. "Do you remember where you came from?" Ryan asked softly, not expecting an answer. To his surprise, Echo turned to look at him, its large eyes filled with something resembling sadness. Then it pointed to the sky. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. Ryan felt a pang of guilt. Maybe Echo wasn't just a stranger. They had taken it away from everything it knew, whether by choice or circumstance. The next morning, Laura made a startling discovery. While examining Echo's body during a routine checkup, she noticed faint lines beneath its translucent skin, tiny implants embedded deep within its tissue. At first, she thought they were part of its natural biology, but further analysis revealed they were artificial. These devices appeared dormant, but Laura realized they could transmit data over vast distances. She shared her findings with the team, sparking both excitement and unease. "What does this mean?" Jake asked, scratching his head. "Is it some kind of tracking device?" "It's possible," Laura replied, "but I think it's more than that. These implants might be how Echo communicates with others of its kind." Ryan frowned. "If that's true, then we need to be careful. We don't know who, or what, might be listening." Despite the risks, Laura couldn't ignore the implications. If Echo could communicate with its creators or species, it might hold the key to understanding why it was abandoned. She began working on a way to activate the implants safely, hoping to unlock answers without causing harm. Meanwhile, Echo continued to adapt, learning more about human emotions and behaviors. It seemed particularly drawn to stories and images of families, often pointing to pictures of parents and children with curiosity. One evening, after a long day of testing, Laura decided to show Echo a video of Earth's oceans. She explained how water connected all forms of life, describing the waves, fish, and coral reefs. Echo listened intently, its expression softening as if imagining the scene. When the video ended, it reached out and touched the screen, tracing the outline of a dolphin. Laura smiled, realizing that Echo wasn't just learning about humans, it was beginning to dream. But not everyone shared her optimism. Ryan's worries grew stronger as protests outside the facility intensified. News outlets reported rumors of alien invasions and government conspiracies, fueling public fear. Some scientists argued that keeping Echo was dangerous, while others believed releasing it would be cruel. Caught between conflicting opinions, the team struggled to decide what was best, for Echo and for humanity. Late one night, Echo surprised them all. As the researchers worked late in the lab, it wandered over to a pile of tools Jake had left out. Picking up a wrench, it began mimicking the motions Jake had taught it earlier. But this time, it didn't stop there. It adjusted a loose bolt on a nearby machine, tightening it perfectly. The act was so deliberate, so precise, that it left everyone speechless. Laura looked at Echo, her heart swelling with pride. "You're amazing, you know that," she whispered. Echo tilted its head, studying her face. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, it said, "Family." In that moment, the team realized something profound. Echo wasn't just learning from them, it was becoming one of them. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, they couldn't turn their backs on it now. As the days passed, Echo's presence in the facility grew stronger. It wasn't just a subject of study anymore. It was part of their team, their lives. Dr. Laura Bennett couldn't help but notice how much Echo had changed since its arrival. At first, it had been cautious and quiet, observing everything with wide, curious eyes. Now, it moved with confidence, interacting with the researchers as if it understood their emotions. It laughed when Jake told jokes, comforted Laura when she looked tired, and even followed Ryan around like a shadow. But despite these heartwarming moments, tensions were rising. The implants beneath Echo's skin remained a mystery, and Laura's attempts to activate them had stalled. She knew they held answers, perhaps about Echo's creators or its purpose. But tampering with alien technology was risky. One wrong move could harm Echo or worse, send a signal into space that humanity wasn't ready for. Still, the urge to learn more was too strong to ignore. One evening, after everyone else had left the lab, Laura decided to try again. She set up a series of tests, carefully monitoring Echo's reactions. To her surprise, Echo seemed to sense what she was doing. It sat quietly, watching her with an intensity that made her pause. Then, without warning, one of the implants began to glow faintly. A soft hum filled the room as data streamed across the monitors. Laura gasped, her hands trembling as she recorded the readings. For the first time, they were seeing inside Echo's connection to the stars. The signal lasted only a few seconds before fading away, leaving the room silent once more. But the implications were clear. Echo had reached out. Whether intentionally or not, it had sent a message into space. Laura's heart raced as she realized what this meant. If Echo's creators, or anyone else, received the signal, they might come looking for it, and humanity wasn't prepared for that kind of encounter. When Ryan heard about the incident the next morning, he was furious. "What were you thinking?" he demanded, his voice sharp with frustration. "You've put us all in danger." "I didn't mean to," Laura replied, her voice calm but firm. "It wasn't me. It was Echo. I think it knows something we don't." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, pacing back and forth. "That's exactly the problem. We don't know anything about it, or them. What if they see us as a threat? What if they take Echo back by force?" Jake, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. "Maybe we're overthinking this. Echo trusts us. If its people are anything like it, maybe they'll understand." Ryan shook his head. "We can't gamble with humanity's safety. Not for this." Despite the disagreement, there was no turning back now. Days later, the facility's sensors picked up faint signals coming from deep space. They were faint at first, almost unnoticeable, but soon they grew stronger. Multiple responses converged on Earth's location, each carrying patterns similar to the ones Echo had transmitted. The team gathered in the control room, staring at the screens in stunned silence. "It's them," Laura whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're coming." Ryan clenched his fists, his mind racing. "We need to prepare. If they're hostile, we won't stand a chance." But Echo didn't seem afraid. When the researchers brought it into the control room, it stood calmly, tilting its head as it listened to the incoming signals. Its expression was unreadable, but there was a sense of familiarity in its movements, as if it recognized the voices calling out to it. Laura knelt beside it, placing a hand on its shoulder. "Do you understand what's happening?" she asked softly. Echo turned to look at her, its large eyes filled with emotion. Then, in a voice clearer than ever before, it said, "Family." The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Laura felt tears welling up in her eyes. No matter where Echo had come from or who was coming for it, she knew one thing for certain. It had already chosen its family, and that family was them. As the signals grew louder, the team braced themselves for what lay ahead. They didn't know whether the visitors would be friends or foes, but one thing was clear. They couldn't face this alone. Together, they would stand by Echo, no matter the cost. The days following the detection of the alien signals were filled with tension and uncertainty. The team at the Colorado facility worked around the clock, analyzing the incoming data and preparing for the unknown. Dr. Laura Bennett spent hours trying to decode the messages, hoping to find a way to communicate peacefully. Engineer Jake Miller focused on upgrading the facility's defenses, just in case the visitors turned out to be hostile. Commander Ryan Carter, meanwhile, coordinated with global authorities, ensuring Earth was ready for whatever might come next. Echo, however, remained calm. It seemed to sense the approaching ships long before the humans did. One evening, as the team gathered in the control room, Echo suddenly stood up and walked to the window. Its translucent skin shimmered faintly as it gazed at the night sky. Then, without warning, it raised its hand and pointed upward. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the facility. A massive fleet of alien ships had entered Earth's orbit. Panic spread quickly. News outlets reported sightings of the ships hovering above major cities, their size dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. Governments scrambled to respond, some calling for immediate military action, while others urged caution. The team at the facility knew they were at the center of it all. If the aliens wanted Echo back, or worse, saw humanity as a threat, they would likely strike first. Ryan called an emergency meeting. "We need to decide what to do," he said, his voice steady but firm. "If we don't act carefully, this could end badly, for Echo and for us." Laura nodded. "I think Echo holds the key. It understands them better than we ever could. Maybe it can help us talk to them." Jake frowned. "And if they don't want to talk, what then?" No one had an answer. But as they debated, Echo stepped forward. It moved toward the main console, its small hands reaching out as if drawn to something only it could feel. Without hesitation, it touched the glowing screen, and the implants beneath its skin began to pulse with light. A surge of energy coursed through the system, broadcasting a signal directly to the alien fleet. The room fell silent as images appeared on the monitors, scenes of destruction, chaos, and rebirth. The aliens shared glimpses of their history, a civilization that had once thrived but collapsed under the weight of its own technology. They showed how Echo's kind had been created, not as individuals, but as tools designed to serve the collective. When the system failed, the creators abandoned these beings, leaving them adrift in space. Laura watched the footage in awe, her heart breaking for Echo. She realized why it had sought comfort in the researchers. It wasn't programmed to survive alone. It needed connection, care, and love. To the aliens, Echo was a relic of failure. But to humanity, it represented hope, the idea that even broken things could find purpose. When the transmission ended, the room was quiet. Ryan broke the silence. "They're waiting for our response." Laura looked at Echo, who stood quietly beside her. "Let's show them what we've become," she said softly. Together, the team crafted a message, combining words, images, and emotions to convey humanity's compassion. They included footage of Echo learning, laughing, and growing alongside them. They wanted the aliens to see that Echo wasn't just a tool, it was family. As the message was sent, the team held their breath. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, the alien fleet responded. A single ship descended from the fleet, landing near the facility. Its sleek design shimmered in the sunlight as a group of tall, slender figures emerged. Their presence was both beautiful and intimidating, radiating power and wisdom. Echo stepped forward, its movements slow but deliberate. It approached the aliens, stopping just a few feet away. For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the figures knelt down, placing a hand on Echo's shoulder. The gesture was simple but profound, a sign of acknowledgement, perhaps even respect. The aliens spoke, their voices resonating like music. Through Echo's implants, their words translated into English. "You have cared for what we discarded," they said. "For this, we thank you." Laura felt tears streaming down her face. Despite everything, humanity had earned their trust. But as the aliens prepared to leave, taking Echo with them, the team knew they had made a difference, not just for Echo, but for the future of two species. The day of Echo's departure arrived faster than anyone expected. The alien ship, sleek and glowing with an otherworldly light, hovered silently above the facility. Its presence was both awe-inspiring and humbling, a reminder of how small humanity was in the grand scheme of the universe. Dr. Laura Bennett stood beside Echo, her hand resting gently on its shoulder. She tried to smile, but her heart felt heavy. This wasn't just goodbye, it was the end of something extraordinary. Commander Ryan Carter gave the team one final briefing. "Stay calm," he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "We've done everything we can. Let's make sure this goes smoothly." He glanced at Echo, who stood quietly, watching the aliens with a mix of curiosity and calm. Ryan couldn't help but feel a pang of pride. They had taken in a stranger, cared for it, and given it a chance to find its place in the world. Whatever happened next, they had done the right thing. Jake Miller stood off to the side, fiddling with a wrench as he always did when he was nervous. He looked at Echo and chuckled softly. "You're gonna be okay out there, huh?" he asked, though he knew it wouldn't answer. Echo turned to him, tilting its head slightly before reaching out and patting his arm. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. Jake nodded, blinking back tears. Yeah, I guess you will. As the team gathered outside the facility, the air was thick with emotion. Scientists, engineers, and security personnel, all of whom had played a part in Echo's journey, stood in silence, watching as the aliens approached. One of the tall, slender figures stepped forward, its movements graceful and deliberate. It knelt down in front of Echo, placing a hand on its chest. A soft glow passed between them, and for a moment, it seemed as though they were sharing something profound. Memories, emotions, or perhaps even gratitude. Laura stepped closer, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Take care of it," she said, her words directed at the alien. "It's special." The alien tilted its head, studying her with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of knowledge. Then, through Echo's implants, it responded. "We understand now," it said, its voice resonating like a melody. "You have shown us what it means to care for what is broken. For this, we are grateful." The words brought tears to Laura's eyes. She had spent months wondering if they were doing the right thing, if caring for Echo was enough. Now she knew. They had made a difference, not just for Echo, but for the aliens too. By showing compassion, they had bridged a gap between two vastly different species. Echo turned to look at the team one last time. It reached out, touching each of them briefly. Laura, Ryan, Jake, and even some of the others who had worked behind the scenes. Its touch was gentle, almost like a farewell hug. Then, without hesitation, it walked toward the alien ship, stepping into the light that enveloped it. As the ship ascended into the sky, the team watched in silence. The hum of its engines faded into the distance, leaving behind an emptiness that was hard to bear. But amidst the sadness, there was also hope. Humanity had faced the unknown and emerged stronger. They had proven that kindness and understanding could transcend even the greatest differences. Later that evening, as the stars twinkled above the Colorado mountains, Laura sat alone on the steps of the facility. She gazed up at the sky, wondering where Echo was now. Was it happy? Did it miss them? She didn't have answers, but she found comfort in knowing that Echo would always carry a piece of them with it, a memory of family, love, and belonging. Ryan joined her after a while, sitting quietly beside her. "Do you think we'll ever see it again?" he asked, his voice soft. Laura smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe not. Either way, it'll remember us, and we'll remember it." In the days that followed, life at the facility slowly returned to normal. But nothing was quite the same. Echo's story became legend, a tale of connection, courage, and the power of empathy. Humanity looked to the stars with newfound optimism, knowing that somewhere out there, a small, shimmering being carried their message of hope. Months passed after Echo's departure, but its impact lingered in the hearts of everyone who had been part of its journey. Dr. Laura Bennett often found herself staring at the stars, wondering about the small being that had changed their lives so profoundly. The facility in Colorado returned to its usual routines, but it felt different now, quieter, as if missing a piece of itself. Even Commander Ryan Carter, who had always been cautious and reserved, seemed softer somehow, his sharp edges smoothed by the lessons they had learned. The world, too, had shifted. News of Echo's story spread far and wide, sparking conversations about humanity's place in the universe. People debated whether the encounter had been a success or a missed opportunity, but one thing was undeniable. It had shown that compassion could bridge even the widest gaps. Schools began teaching Echo's story as an example of how kindness and curiosity could lead to understanding. Artists painted murals of the shimmering being, while writers penned books imagining what life might be like for it among its creators. At the facility, Jake Miller spent hours tinkering with machines, just as he always had. But now he kept a small model of Echo on his workbench, a reminder of the creature that had once helped him fix things with its tiny hands. He smiled whenever he looked at it, remembering how Echo had brought them all together. "You taught us more than we taught you," he muttered to himself one day, chuckling softly. Laura, meanwhile, poured her energy into studying the data collected during Echo's time on Earth. She hoped to uncover more about its biology, its implants, and the signals it had sent into space. Though she knew the chances of decoding everything were slim, she felt driven to keep trying. It wasn't just about science anymore. It was about honoring Echo's memory and ensuring its story wasn't forgotten. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the team gathered outside the facility for a quiet moment of reflection. They lit candles and shared stories about Echo, laughing at some memories and tearing up at others. Ryan spoke last, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I used to think this was just a mission," he admitted, "but it turned out to be so much more. Echo reminded us of something important, that no matter where we come from, we're all connected." As they stood there under the vast night sky, something unexpected happened. A faint glow appeared in the distance, growing brighter until it became clear it was coming from above. The team froze, their eyes wide as a familiar hum filled the air. Moments later, a small ship descended gently, landing a short distance away. Its design was unmistakable. It was alien, yet it carried echoes of home. The door opened slowly, and out stepped a figure they recognized instantly. Echo had returned. It walked toward them, its translucent skin shimmering under the moonlight. For a moment, no one moved. Then Laura ran forward, tears streaming down her face as she hugged the small being tightly. "You came back," she whispered, her voice trembling. Echo tilted its head, studying each of them with its large, curious eyes. Then, in a voice clearer than ever before, it said, "Family." The team erupted into cheers, their joy overwhelming. Echo hadn't forgotten them. It had chosen to return. Whether it was visiting briefly or staying for good didn't matter. What mattered was that it had come back, proving that the bonds they had formed were real and lasting. In the weeks that followed, Echo settled back into its old routines, learning new things and sharing moments of laughter and warmth. Humanity continued to look to the stars, inspired by the knowledge that connection was possible, even across the vastness of space. Echo's story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that family wasn't defined by blood or species, but by love and trust. And so, beneath the endless sky, humanity took its first steps toward a future where differences weren't barriers, but bridges.